and he was conceived in the third week under Abiyah. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, he was born in the 42nd week, and which is 40 weeks later. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Ishmael is the forerunner of Isaac, just like what we see with John being the forerunner of Yahusha. And Linda and I were looking at that, and we were like, hey, this is again, we're seeing a confirmation here that this is running in the same pattern that we see in the future between John and Yahusha. So, do you happen to have Jubilees 82?
Yes. Okay. So I think what I
Okay.
need to do is stop sharing and then share again, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Give me like,
So one big difference though, so John the Baptist was 6 months older than Yahusha, but of course Ishmael is 13 years older than Isaac. So there's that difference. But Isaac, or I should say John the Baptist, of course, was righteous, whereas Ishmael, I think it's interesting that number 13 is between them. But
Right.
we just wanted to show you guys the pattern. It's pretty unbelievable.
Okay. So, let's see. Hold up. Is that the 82nd Jubilee?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the 43rd. Sorry. Ah,
And one of the things that we had noticed the in the pattern, if you will, is that Ishmael is described as a wild man living out in the wilderness, right? Well, so is John. Only John is a priest, Ishmael is not. Ishmael or John the Baptist was living out in the wilderness out at Qumran where he was learning. And he, sorry guys, um, he pretty much, you see the parallel between Ishmael and John. And if you've ever seen the Jesus of Nazareth movie, he's kind of portrayed as a wild man out there proclaiming Yahusha, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, a wild man eating wild honey and wild
And
locusts
locust.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so John was conceived in 7 BC under Abiyah. And then 40 weeks later, under 42, he was born under number 23, Deliah. Now, John was circumcised 8 days after his birth. However, Ishmael was not. He was circumcised 13 years later, in, let's see, what was that year? In
On
86
Pentecost,
or
right?
85. He was
Right.
circumcised in 85. Let me go back to the 42nd Jubilee. Or sorry, 2055 when Abraham was, oh, wait a minute. Ah, um, yes, 2068 is when he was circumcised.
who was the priest?
The priest, it was number 11. Number 11. And in that year, number 10, Shechin had come in at the beginning of the year in 2068. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I am looking at the wrong one. And the priest at Shavuot when they made the covenant, it was in week 12, and that would have been under number 21, Yakin. Yah will establish, or he will establish.
That
Number
was the
29,
renewal of the covenant
2068.
with the
Right.
circumcision sign, and that was everyone in Abram's house was circumcised on that day.
Yes. And that
And
was in
Abraham,
year,
yeah, he was
Abraham.
99 years old. Yeah.
right. And that was in year 2068 AM, 1932 BC. And then 1 year later in 2069, Isaac is born.
On Shavuot,
On
just like
Shavuot.
Yahusha.
Yes.
Yep.
But the priests run differently, so he would have been born under number 1, Yehoiarib, in the 12th week.
We just wanted to share that with you guys because Yah and his patterns and his timing, it's really unbelievable.
Um, there were some other things that I ran into when I was going through Jubilees. Now, I had previously put in all of the births for the descendants of Adam, and I had also gone through the kings, with the exception of the kings of Israel, because that one is a hot mess. But as I was going through, I'll tell you, there were some major shenanigans that they had played within Jubilees, and I can totally understand why people were looking at it, trying to figure it out, and then they just totally gave up. One, you really need the priestly order in order to be able to work it out. And once you have the priestly order, then you can sort out the timing of the births, the events that occurred within biblical history. One of the things that I found out is they inserted an extra name within the lineage between Seth, between Shem and uh and oh, who is it? Eber.
Can you show
Anyway,
us that, Christina, in Jubilees?
let's see. Yes, in Jubilees, it would be in Jubilees chapter 8, verse 1. And the name that they had inserted in there was Kenam. Well, Kenam is not the son of Arpachshad. Sheila is the son of Arpachshad. And as I was looking at the LXX, it is also inserted in the LXX. And I had also noticed that it was the name Kenam was inserted in Luke 3:36. And I looked at that and I was like, this can't be right. This can't be right because Kenan is not mentioned in Genesis 11:12 through 13, nor is he mentioned within that line in chapter 10, verse 24, or in 1 Chronicles 1:24.
So,
So,
Christina, I'm sorry. I
yeah,
just want to, just because I know a lot of other people have this same version, the Timothy Schwab, he has a note here that explains that Canaan is not to be confused with Canaan from Ham, which occurs, it says, in the LXX version of Genesis 11:13. So I don't know if anybody can confirm that. Is there like a name listed in the LXX in Genesis
there
11:13?
there is. It is listed in there.
Okay, okay.
But I believe because even though it's a Greek text, I believe it was inserted in there. Um, I believe it was inserted in there on purpose because when you go to 1 Chronicles 124, and you count from Adam to Yaakov, there are 22 listed. And I counted it over and over and over just to make sure that it was right. And there it is correct. So my reasoning that I came to is that it was inserted in there to confuse the timeline again. It would send the timeline out an extra 30 to 50 years, and it would mess it up, is basically what it would do. It would push everything forward. So my understanding is that this was not the son of Arpachshad. Sheila is the child of Arpachshad, not Canaan. And also in Luke, the name is inserted in there, but it's not inserted anyplace else. So with that as an aside, two of the dates, I have basically considered them not good, and those dates would be 1375 a.m. and 1429 a.m. And so I just went and I put that aside. And it made sense to me that the reason that Canaan is actually Kenan is due to the fact that they had stolen the land that belongs to Shem. All of Israel, the land of Israel, which was the inheritance, it was taken by Ham's son Canaan. And it makes sense to me that if he was living in that land, that is where the stones would have been found, and he wouldn't have told anybody.
Which
And
is
it's not to say
chapter
that,
8, verse 3.
right. And it's not to say that Shem's line didn't sin, because they absolutely did. But I believe that this insertion was meant to confuse the line again.
Mitzi, what verse did you just share?
Uh, Chapter 8, verse 3 is what Christina's referencing, that this Canaan, or I actually think it's Canaan, that found the stones, that the watchers transcribed on it. Well, I'll just read it. And he found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock, and he read that was thereon, and he transcribed it and sinned owing to it, for it contained teachings of the watchers in accordance with what they used to observe the omens of the sun, moon, and stars, and all the signs of heaven. So, and he wrote it down and said nothing regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be angry with him on account of it. So, I think Christina's right, and it wasn't Canaan, it wasn't a child of Arphaxad, it was Canaan all along. And they slid it in there to mess up the timeline and also to claim ties to Shem's line, the righteous line. In
Right.
reality, it's the Nephilim blood. It's the folks that have been messing with us this whole time.
So, can we just, if we were, how do you think chapter 8 in Jubilees should be? Like, we're basically saying that verse 1, that there's the,
So
in
it should
20, go ahead, Christina, just say what you think it should say.
so what it should say, that he married the daughter of Elam, and she bare a son, and we know that the timing is incorrect on that when we consider the priestly order. It should go directly to verse 5. and let's see, and in the 36th year, in the second week, in the first year thereof, we're going to skip that. He called his name Sheila. And I have 17:14 a.m. because remember, I took out 1429 and 1375 because I don't believe um, those are correct dates. They've just been inserted in there. And then afterward, everything else is working well within the time frame that I have with the priestly order. Um, I believe that this is actually Ham's line that was inserted for part of verse 1, 2 through part of 5. Again,
And
it was to confuse the timeline and move everything forward. So I've been looking at, I have R.H. Charles Jubilees. So I've been working on this last week and going through every single one of these dates. And the one that never made any sense to me was the one with Canaan, because when you compare it to the Masoretic, and when you compare it to 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 24, you count all 22 of their heads. They're all there. Canaan is not included in 1 Chronicles 124 or in Genesis.
he's also not included in the genealogy of Yahusha and Matthew.
Right. So, okay, I
I
just want to like just drill into this a little bit more. I, so as I'm following you, in verse 1 in chapter 8 of Jubilees, in the 29th Jubilee, in the first week, in the beginning thereof, Arpachshad took to himself a wife, and her name was Rajajai, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam, and she bare him a son in the third year of this week, period, right? Period. But you can take this then to the last sentence in verse 5 and called his name Sheila, for he said, truly I have been sent. Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then if you take where we left off, and basically, the last little portion of verse 1, where it says, he called his name Canaan, we kind of could say, Ham called his son Canaan, and he grew, and his father, Ham, taught him writing, and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city. And that's when he finds these
Yes.
writings.
Exactly. And that's why Canaan is cursed, right? We know that he is cursed not only for, and this, there's been also a controversy about Canaan's cursing as well, because when Ham had seen his father naked, if you will, Noah cursed Canaan, not Ham. So there's that little bit of stuff going on in there as well.
So I just want to like say this too, because it's just what I believe is that generational curses are a real thing that get passed down from generation to generation. And we don't believe that Noah's wife that he brought on the ark was the mother of Ham, Shem, and Noah. He remarried and brought this woman to, and we believe that well, I'm going to speak for myself here if anybody else wants to agree with me. Noah's new wife that he brought onto the ark, she was not deemed, no one was. The only person that was deemed perfect in generations was Noah. Okay. And then I do believe that possibly Noah's wife, when he had his sons, were perfect too. And so his sons could have been perfect too, genial, like with their genes. But when Ham slept with Noah's new stepmom, really, he then mixed his seed with her, and she was not pure. And so when you think about generational curses and Ham going out to seize this land for himself, these spirits could have been leading him right to those writings.
And it was actually Canaan who went out and took the land. He's
Yep.
the one that seized it by sedition.
Where is that? Just so we can give people some, does anybody know where that is?
That I believe is in chapter 8. Um,
Yeah, it's not long after that.
it's yeah, it isn't long after that. Let's see, in chapter 9. And Ham divided amongst his sons, and the first portion came forth to Cush towards the east, and to the west of him for Mitzrayim, and to the west of him for Put, and to the west of him and to the west thereof on the sea for Canaan. Let's go further. And he literally seizes it. Okay, so this is in chapter 10, verse 27. In the fourth week in the first year, in the beginning thereof, in the 34th Jubilee, were they dispersed from the land of Shinar. And Ham and his sons went into the land which he was to occupy, which he acquired as his portion in the land of the south. And Canaan saw the land of Lebanon to the river of Egypt, that it was very good, and he went not into the land of his inheritance to the west, that is, to the sea. And he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, eastward and westward from the border of Jordan, and from the border of the sea. And Ham, his father, and Cush, and Mizraim, his brothers, said unto him, Thou hast settled in a land which is not thine, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do so, for if thou dost do so, thou and thy sons will fall in the land and be accursed through sedition. For by sedition ye have settled, and by sedition will thy children fall, and thou shalt be rooted out forever. Dwell not in the dwelling of Shem, for to Shem and to his sons did it come by their lot. Cursed art thou, and cursed shalt thou be beyond all the sons of Noah, by the curse by which we bound ourselves by an oath in the presence of the holy judge, and in the presence of Noah our father. But he did not hearken unto them, and dwelt in the land of Lebanon from Hamath to the entering of Egypt, he and his sons unto this day. And for this reason, that land is named Canaan. And Japheth and his sons went towards the sea and dwelt in the land of their portion in Madai. So this is about them going into their own. But as you can see, Canaan stole the land. He stole it.
And what was
And
he
And
so,
descended
he
from?
and he's the progenitor of the Nephilim and their wickedness, which he got from those stones. And they're trying to tag that to the Shem's line instead of where it rightfully belongs, the way I see it. And by the way, I misspoke about the genealogy in Matthew because it starts with Adam. So I meant, sorry, starts with Abraham, so it wouldn't have, he wouldn't have been in there anyway.
right. So what I just read, Carolyn, was chapter 10, verses 27 through 34
Of Jubilee.
of Jubilees. Sorry, should have added the title.
And it's interesting because I was listening to something yesterday and it talked about the brides of Noah and his sons came on the ark. And I wondered why it used the word brides, like they had just recently all been married.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I personally think Noah's the mother of those three boys died
Yeah.
prior to the flood, which is what God did with the righteous.
Well, I read something months ago and it talked about that Noah, that was his second wife that he brought on the ark, but I can't remember where I read it from.
I believe in the book of Jasher, and in the book of Jasher, it lists Naamah as his second wife.
So, okay, I'm going to just reiterate one last time. Chapter 8 in Jubilees, verse 1, there is an A and a B. And he called his name Canaan. And so we're basically, the God Cultures notes, I understand why
Disagree.
you would be confused by it. He's saying, don't confuse this character with Canaan, but that's exactly who we're talking about. The end of verse one, and then verses two, three, and four are describing exactly Canaan.
Yep, because we read more about the curse in Jubilees 10.
Yes, and that was Jubilees 10. You said 27 through what was it, Christina?
31, I believe.
Thank you.
34, I thought you said.
34. Okay. We'll
Okay, thank you. No,
just in
that's fine.
case.
No, that's okay.
Yes, I agree with you, Rachel, that there are occultic things in Jasher, but I've read up to chapter like six, and I do wonder if there's some validity to maybe the beginning of Jasher, but I agree with you. It's not found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then later on, there's definitely some very weird stuff going on in there too.
I agree. Some truth in there, but
Right,
it's not trustworthy,
right.
bottom line.
If anything, it makes you look at the stories a little more closely.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that was my finding for Ham for chapter 8. Or, that I firmly believe that it was inserted in order to confuse the time and just basically mess up the genealogy. Now, as I was going through other parts, well, I was still going through Jubilees. When I got to the history of Abraham, once again, I started seeing parallels between our time and Abraham's time. And again, we see the pattern going again and again. And, me personally, I really feel like Father is continuing to prove out the timeline because things are they're just matching up. The pattern is matching up. And I never saw this pattern. Like I said, I've had Abraham's uh, work already done in my book. It just wasn't until I was going through Jubilees, reading the accounts that were going on, that I started to see that, oh wow, this is the years are matching up. And why is there a focal point on a particular date? So when we get to, can you go to Jubilees 41? We'll start there first.
Sure. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep. All right. So Abraham is born in 1969 AM, and that would be 2031 BC, and Gumul would have begun that year. So in 1983, which is 2017 BC, Abraham separates himself from his father. And this is according to Jubilees 11, 16, and 17. And that was when he began to pray to Yah.
Jubilees. What was that address again?
Jubilees 11, 16, and 17.
17 and 2017. Interesting.
Yes, I know, right? Okay. So,
He's 14 years old too, which is another fun fact, Christina.
I know, right? 14, there's still a few more generations to Yaakov, but this is within the 14-year generations, the first 14. Or no, it's the second, right? Yeah. Okay, so then in 2016 or 1984, when Abraham is 15 years old, he makes a plow. He invents a plow and he shows the people how to plow and seed their fields. And this is in Jubilees 11:23. So now we go to
Hang on. I just want to,
2000.
just so y'all probably all see this, but make the note. So Abraham's 14 when he breaks away from his father, who made idols for a living, and that was 2017 BC. So you guys know that Abraham is the father of the faithful, right? Scripture says, and he was 14 years old, pointing to Revelation 14, which is the bride, 144,000, which is also pointed to in Revelation 12, the sign of the woman happened in 2017. So, it, again, I know I say this all the time, but you cannot make this stuff
Mhm.
up.
Insert emoji with its mind being blown here.
Yeah,
After
Yeah,
everything you just said, Mitzi, it's like, wow, there's a lot of
yeah. I just,
troops.
before we blow by it, I just wanted to, point to all those things that are
Right.
there. Yeah.
And we will be coming back to 2017 again because, well, we just can't help but see it. All right.
Hold on, I
So,
just want to make sure
yeah,
are I am in this crazy, like my screens are going crazy over here, but I just want to make sure the chats are being okay. You guys are keeping up with the chats? I just wasn't seeing them until
Yeah,
now.
somebody made a comment, I can't remember, a while back when we were at Genesis, saying, how do we know Genesis wasn't messed with? And I do, it has been, and I think in our previous presentations we've shown where the order of Genesis is completely wrong. There's names slidden in, and so we're not saying that scripture. We just do believe though that Yah always leaves a trail that you can figure out what was added, what was subtracted when you really study through it. So,
There's always at least two witnesses to confirm what he's saying. And
right.
it's all being confirmed within the key of David, which is the priestly order. We're confirming all of these things.
right. And without the key of David, we couldn't have found the key of Ezekiel or
Mhm.
Ezekiel's key. Okay, so the next one is in Jubilees 12, 1 through 6. Abraham confronts his father about idolatry, and this is in year 2003 or 1997 BC. And he's 28 years old at that time. And so again, um, we've or I had noticed that there had been probably some more shenanigans going on in here, but I'm going to save that for another time. All right, so if we go to 42, can we go to 42?
Oh,
Jubilees 42?
sure. Give me one sec.
He means the calendar.
Okay.
All right. So the next event to take place was in Jubilees 12:9. Abram takes a wife. And this happens in 2017 AM, 1983 BC. And what is very interesting is that there are 33 years between 1983 AM and 2017 BC. So you'd have to go back to 41.
Okay. To show
Uh,
the 33.
right, right. There's 33 years. And so the other thing that's very interesting about this is that we see that 2016, the year 2016, is at the end of day two, and 2017 is the beginning of the third day. Now, immediately my mind went to the 123rd Jubilee. Can we go to 123rd Jubilee?
Or-
Rachel asked, can you repeat the 33 years between what?
Okay, so there are 33 years between 1983 AM and 2017 AM.
And what's the point of that?
The number 33, well, we're going to go here now. But
Okay.
before we do, we're going to look at 2017.
Am I in the right place? Oh, yeah, I am.
There you go. Yep, 2017. And you see 6016. So there is a year that it's showing right here that there is a year difference between AM and AD, which is our time. That is the connection that I made that we're on the right track. Um, that's just how my brain works. And what's interesting is that there are 33 years from 2017 to 2049. That's 33 years. And this is where we get to, just stay right there. This is where we come to Second Samuel, or I think it's Second Samuel, when David is a king. So
And that's the end of day 6, by the way. 2049
yes.
is the last year in day 6 of Yah's plan. So,
All right, I'm trying to get there real quick.
I do have another. Do you mind? I know you're looking at this right now,
Go
Christina.
ahead,
I'm
Linda.
just going to share a different version of that because I just for fun, so you can look at something else too. Give me one sec.
And this would be the information I'm going to tell you, or I'll show you after Linda brings up another page. The verse that I'm going to reference is 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 4 and 5.
Okay, can you guys see that clear? I mean,
Yep, I can see it.
okay. So go ahead, Christina.
Okay, so let's read 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 4 and 5. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Yehuda 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Yehuda. So once again, 2017 AD is our timeline. That is when the Revelation 12 sign occurred, when Jupiter was found in Virgo's womb. Okay. So when we look at 2017 and we subtract 7 years and 6 months, we end up in the spring of 2010 when our 40-year Exodus began. There you go. And the half year ended in 2017 in September on the 23rd when the Revelation 12 sign occurred. Okay. 33 years after 2017, we end up in 2049, which is the very last year of the end of the sixth day. And then in 2050 is day 7, and that is when Yahusha walks into the new temple that was built, found in Ezekiel chapters 40 through 48. So that is absolutely awesome. And to also prove out that our Exodus began in 2010 is that when we go to Haggai chapter 2 and we go to verse 16, it says here, since those days one came to a heap of 20 ephah and there were 10. There's 2010, 2010. One came to the wine press to draw out 50 baths from the press, and there were 20. So now you have 2050. So the Exodus started in 2010 and will be completely over in 2050. So again, we've got more confirmation of this timeline here. And it was amazing when Linda found David's time frame in Second Samuel. It was just amazing. So it's just it's confirming things.
So overall, are you seeing what this shows is the 40 years of calling us out of the wilderness of the world, 2010 to 2050, is paralleled to King David's reign, which had two divisions, one in Hebron, the 7.5 years, and then the one in Jerusalem for 33. So if you do the math, the division ends up on 2017 for the Revelation 12 sign. So that's, everything in here, he puts everything in here for a reason that's showing us something and pointing to something else. And like we've always said, Yah has his patterns. He has his way of communicating without writing it out because there's only a few people now that he's wanting to put all this together. So I hope that makes sense what we're doing there.
So if I could too, just real quick, add on top of this, um, a lot of churches teach about a 7 year tribulation, and I was just talking about this morning, and that I believe I was thinking it had to do with Joseph and the 7 years of the famine that he had when he was ruling in Egypt. And then the verse Daniel 9:27 was shared by Rachel about they use this too. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. So I do have a picture uh, of these two periods of time, Yahusha's birth year of 6 BC and the 3 years, I'm sorry, um, 2030, the year of his death, and the 3.5 years prior to it, that basically, if you look at it, I'm going to kind of show it to you here. Yahusha stands up in the temple and he's handed the scroll from Isaiah, and this is when we believe his ministry begins here. So it's a half a year and then 3 years, like these 3 years, 1, 2, 3, and then a half a year. And then there is that is when the end of
Crucifixion.
the
Yeah.
crucifixion happens, which is the end of the sacrifice. So the sacrificial, the system is collapsed. There's no more need for it anymore because our high priest stepped into his role as the Melchizedek high priest. And so this year right here, this always represents the middle branch, which is Yahusha. And this is where we pick up and right here. So if you add this together, starting here, which is the first day of unleavened bread, and our count of 1260, it's going to end. You can't see it, but it basically keeps going. It's here at uh at atonement.
When
Right,
his
at
foot
Yom
hits.
Kippur.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
Yom Teruah actually. So three literally like here. So it's just perfect. Like you cannot mess with it. It's perfect. It's all there. There's 3.5 years for the tribulation.
Right. And also he was cut off midweek. A week is 7 years.
Yeah.
Cut off in the middle of it. That's 3.5 years on each side.
Yeah, I'm gonna
And,
bring up that picture.
yeah, and it's so special. So Yahusha's he is the branch, right? That fourth rod of the menorah. He was born on the fourth week of a jubilee, the fourth year of the fourth week, and he dies on the fourth year of the last week in day four. You just, it's perfection. And then just like Joshua 3 talks about 2,000 cubits to stay behind the Ark of the Covenant crossing into the promised land, you follow that 2,000 years. So it would be 2029, right? Or 30 AD was his death. You can't, so the fall is exactly 2,000 years later, fall of 2029, lacking 6 months. And that's why scripture in Joshua 3 says about. But you can't get any closer from spring to fall with that makes sense. Sorry. Messed up your train of thought.
No, I am supposed to be showing his death, and I was showing his birth. But they're all in the middle year. Oops.
Yep, because that's his name, the branch
Hmm.
of that menorah.
Okay. So let me just twist this. So here we are in the middle branch at his death
Yep,
with Abia.
yep. 4029 and 2000 years later is when his return will be
And
in
he died in the
2029.
fourth day,
Yes.
middle day, and in the middle branch
Right,
of the
day
second
four.
week.
And also, you notice that the year 33 ends day 4.
Right. It doesn't have the number 4 here, but just imagine. It should say 4.
It got cut off.
Yeah, it should say 5 here. But if you're following along at home with your own priestly order, you'll know.
And speaking of 2029, you got another interesting thing to show there, Christina.
Should I go back to 2023?
Let me see. My brain kind of is shot at the moment, so
Oh,
I cannot
about
say.
when Abram burned all the
Oh,
idols.
yes, yes. So in 2029,
Oh,
in
I don't
Jubilee,
have that. I should take a picture of it real quick. Hold.
yeah, no worries. So in Jubilees 12:12, Abraham burns down the house of idols and his brother Haran dies.
Trying to
So,
save the idols, no less.
yep, no doubt. So this happened in 2029 and it's 1971 BC. And of course, here it happened under Gamul. Gamul began that year. So this is pretty significant in my humble opinion, because Yah is going to be burning his house down, basically, right? Through fire, his wrath,
And
2020.
all idols will be destroyed.
Yep. So this this again is confirmation after confirmation that we're on time. Even though it, to a lot of people, they can't see it, um, there's a lot of things happening in the background that are not always going to be in your face. And I believe that is the deception. If you're not catching it, if you're not watching it, and you're not putting two and two together, you're missing the signs, because the signs are there. And in my humble opinion, I do believe that Matthew 24:16 has already taken place. And that is when the Judeans flee, when the war started. I saw a very short blurb on it, and I've never seen it again. And I saw this a few weeks ago, and there were thousands of people leaving. They were headed out. They left. I don't know if Israel is still being bombed or not, but that's just one of the things that um, that we're looking at. I believe it's Matthew 24:16.
One more little tidbit I'd like to get through, just before we go back to uh, Malachi or Micah. I get them confused. Anyway, in Genesis 14, and this is when Abram was 85 years old, this was the fight of the kings of the title kings of nations, and this is when he had to rescue Lot. So, and we also believe this was on Passover, of course. So it's mentioned that the king of Zor in Genesis 14 verse 8 was involved, and we know Zor is the place that Lot ran to when Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. So just and then verse 10, now the valley of Siddim was full of asphalt pits. That's Genesis 14, verse 10. And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and some fell there, and the remainder fled to the mountains. So this is the area. So Sodom and Gomorrah is just below the Red Sea. The Jordan River flows into the northern part of the Dead Sea. I might have said red. I meant Dead Sea, where the salt pits were. And so before in this time, I don't think there was water there, because it never mentions it. But what I read somewhere basically said Genesis 14, verse 18, is when Melchizedek, king of Salem, who I believe is Yahusha, none other than Yahusha, the priest of the Most High, brought out bread and wine, and he was the priest of Elohim Most High. So that's Yahusha bringing bread and wine or Passover. Genesis 14 and Genesis 15 goes into the first day of unleavened bread and that covenant. But what's interesting to me is they made the comment that Melchizedek comes out and gives Abram bread and wine at Bethabara, or modern day Qumran, where John the Baptist was baptizing, where Yahusha was baptized, where John the Baptist declared, "Behold, the Lamb of Yahweh, come to take the sins away from the world." So in the next chapter, he made a covenant that he would be that perfect lamb sacrifice. And it does make perfect sense to me. Yah, just like the sacrifice of Abraham's son Isaac on Mount Moriah, which turns out to be exactly where Yahusha was sacrificed. Yah does, he shows patterns not only with time and people, but places. The very place that Yahusha would be baptized and this is my son, who I am well pleased, listen to him. And the Holy Spirit descends on him. And that's where he begins his ministry. And then in John 10, that's where he flees toward the end of his ministry. That is where the Zadok priesthood was. When I read that, I just knew in my heart, wow, that is exactly what took place, where it took place, and pointing to what would happen in the future in that very place. So I just wanted to share that. And then it does talk about in verse 17, and the king of Sodom went out to meet him, Abraham in the valley of Shavah, which I looked that up and it's called the King's Valley. And they act all confused where it is. I guarantee you it's the Jordan Valley right there, the wilderness of Judea, Qumran, Bethbara. It has multiple names, but there's no doubt in my mind that Yahusha, Melchizedek, showed up right where he would be anointed by Yahweh the Father to be that Lamb, our Savior. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think it shows up in my map. I better double check that. I thought I saw that Kings Valley in a book that I have because I was trying to figure out something between Bethel, Jericho, Jordan, and Gilgal. And I thought the Kings Valley was mentioned in there, but that
A
could have
lot of
been
folks,
my
if you
thought.
research it, they'll point you to the Kidron Valley, which the Kidron flows through that area as well. So that's like a second witness.
Yeah, it's interesting that well, you know what? It's not interesting. We know why they withhold
They hide
information.
it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was my imagination because I don't see it in here. I know I saw it someplace.
Sorry it
But
took me so long, but I finally have Jubilee 124 if anybody wanted to talk a little bit more about it.
oh, yes. So when you go to 2049, there you go. That's 33 years later from 2017. And
And
it's,
again, that's the last day and day 6.
yep.
The temple's completed, and then the first day of the year, here comes Gamul again on day 7. And that's when Yahusha comes in at the east gate. I think it's Ezekiel 43, and walks in with the rising sun, but I think he's going to outshine the sun.
And
And
go
then
in.
walks right into the Holy of Holies and sits down.
Yep. And so this also matches David's division of time where he reigned. So 7.5 years going from 2010 to September 23rd of 2017. That's the 7.5 years. And then the 33 years later, leading right on up to 2049. That is our Exodus. This is the Exodus we are in right now. It's not going to look exactly the same as the first Exodus with Moshe. So it's going to be different.
Christina, so Carolyn's asking about, do we have an estimated date for Sodom being destroyed? Um, so what we just talked about when Melchizedek comes, that was when Abram was 85 years old. So I think it was soon after that. Christina, do you have any opinions on that?
Not at this time. Not at this time, I don't, because I want to double check my I want to double check that time frame because that's where I stopped. My brain was mush by the time I got this far. So it's just going through Jubilees again with the correct order of Jubilees and also the correct order of Genesis, and then ironing all of that out.
Right. I'll just throw in my opinion. Again, it's my opinion, but I still do believe that that was second Passover time, right after he comes back from being rescued. So it would be in the same year, just a month later, after the Genesis 14:15.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if it was right before Pentecost when they are circumcised or if it was after.
Oh, it's before. It's before because Pentecost, when they're circumcised, is when Abraham is 99 years old. He's 85 when this event takes place, the Genesis 14 and 15. And the reason we know that, if you go back to the picture on band we posted that shows the timeline and it proves out the 400 versus the 430 years of these covenants to the children of Israel walking out of Egypt. So Isaac was 15 years old when he was taken to be sacrificed. So you can kind of do the math from all there.
Right. And
There it is. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's interesting too. So from the time that Abram's called out of Ur of the Chaldeans when he was 75 to the great testing of his son Isaac, it was 40 years later. And then from that covenant on 315 initially. Uh, so the Genesis 15 there is 115, not 315.
Oh, I have an updated version somewhere, but sorry, I brought up this one. So yeah, this should be a 115. I do have an edited version
Yeah.
of this somewhere.
Yeah. And if you look at that, there's that 430 years from the self same day, right? The day of that covenant till they walked out, 430 years later. And then there's your 400 years from the sacrifice of Isaac to the same day as well. That they walk out. They walk out on 115, and then 2 months later is the covenant. And on Mount Sinai. And so the circumcision covenant that Abraham makes at his 99th year is, you know, goes with when the law is given to Israel.
So I guess the next question is that when do you think Lot separated from Abraham and went to Sodom? Do you have an estimated date on that?
It was right after the times when Abraham claimed that Sarah was his sister. That is when they were tracking together at that point.
Yeah, when they
And
came back from Egypt.
yeah, well, from
I
Abinadab, what is that? Genesis 21.
Yeah, I think I've got that down as the year 1947, which is 2053 a.m. when he's 84 years old. But again, I need to go back and double check that because I'm thinking that we were looking at between 1948 and 1947. I have just not done my due diligence yet in that section. That's why I said that by the time I got to this section, I needed to go back over it again and just iron things out. So,
But
Okay.
it's pretty clear they separated in that first 10 years. Because that's how
Yeah.
Lot got his wealth as well. And then it got to be when they came together and returned to Canaan. That is when it was just they had too many flocks for them all to get along. So that's when they separated.
I think what's really interesting too is looking at the looking at the dates 1947 or 1948 AM and then taking it up to our time today. This we're again seeing the pattern because what happened in 1947, 1948 our time, we had the Balfour Declaration and the Rockefellers, or who were they? The Rothschilds were trying to get the state of Israel created. And by 1948, they actually did it. But the plans were on the table in 1947. So it's just interesting to me that we see that Lot is parting from Abraham at that time, or at around that time, I should say. But I think that's about all I've got.
Did you figure out how many years he was actually in Egypt?
Less than 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Somewhere it
was.
said 5. Was it
Yeah,
5 years?
it was 5 years.
Somewhere
Okay.
I read he was there 5 years. I can't. It was either, I think it was in
He,
Jubilees.
yeah, he was there for 5 years, and Sarai was taken from him during that time. And I have that down tentatively at 2046.
Yeah, because I was
And
reading that
yeah,
it was there for 5 years and then his wife was taken, but I didn't know if that was correct. When I
yeah, I think it was. And then she wasn't kept from him long. And then they weren't with Abimelech very long at all.
No, it was quick. And
Yeah.
please excuse me, I gave the wrong time frame. It's actually 2051 that I have down 1949 BC. So in that fifth year, she was taken, and he was 82 years old. And then right afterward, I've got 1948, Lot and Abraham. They parted ways. There's just a lot of stuff that was happening at that time, but Just remember, I'm saying tentatively because, again, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in Jubilees and also in Genesis, how things have been rearranged. And I'm wrapping my brain around that. It's a lot of information to try to straighten out in my head.
Yeah, I was going through that, and I know that Book of Jasher lines up with some of the stuff that Jubilees outside of the extra stories that it has. But
Yeah.
the timeline was kind of matching, but yeah, I wasn't sure when I was researching and everything if what I was coming up was correct.
Hey, Rachel, she said, I think I have heard them explain that no one knows the day or the hour applies to when the final judgment happens and the earth is destroyed, new heavens and new earth. We also believe, Rachel, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think nobody knows the day or the hour that Yahusha comes for his bride, right? The wise virgin that he says, pray that you are worthy to escape all these things and stand before the Son of Man. We didn't know the day or the hour. Obviously, we've proven that we don't know. But I believe this calendar does show we don't know the day, we don't know the hour, but I believe we do know it's spring and which year. Because 2026 would have to be the correct year if Yahusha is returning in fall of 2029 on the Day of Atonement. So, and again, the reason why we think it's spring, he says, pray your flight is not in the winter or the Sabbath. Song of Solomon says, lo, winter is past. And then in Matthew and Luke, it says that summer is near. So that homes right in the spring. So, Uh, anybody else have any other? So I do think it is showing that nobody knows the day or the hour that he's coming to take his wide bride to her place. And then I do also think that it applies, and Peter talks about it. Is it Second Peter chapter 3? He talks about that no one knows the day or the hour of when the heavens and the earth are destroyed at the end of the great white throne judgment. I can find that real fast.
Yeah, I want to write that in my Bible. I don't have that.
But it's pretty neat too because the Hebrew wedding model, when the groom comes to get the bride, um, only the father of the groom tells him when he's allowed to go get her. So I think that's interesting that so nobody could know but the father, right?
Do you guys love surprises?
Oh, I love them when they, oh, yeah.
But
Not
they're good
not like
surprises.
this.
Yes.
Okay, so it's Second Peter 3, verse 10. But the day of Yah will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat, both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. So again, that's Second Peter chapter 3, verse 10.